But no, her fans were like obsessive. They were like tweeting us at like, they were tweeting me at 2 or 3 in the morning, because they're mostly from the UK, because she's from the UK. And they're like, when's the interview? I'm going to wait up, I'm going to stay up all night until it's up. And I was like, I already told you yesterday it was going to be up at 8 a.m. So you might as well go to bed and just get up at 8 a.m.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Conversation of Art podcast. This is episode 5. We have Ross Barber from Electric Kiwi on, as well as Bridge the Atlantic. Ross is a friend of mine from Scotland, and he does web design for bands, as well as hosts a great podcast you should check out called Bridge the Atlantic, as I mentioned, and you'll hear more about in the show. Thanks so much for tuning in, and also thank you for those of you who sent me some notes about the fact that you're enjoying the show and what you like and that sort of thing. That stuff's always super helpful. In this show, you might notice the volume kind of ducks up and down a little bit in the conversation. Sorry about that. Somehow Skype had something weird going on, but I've tried to even it out best I can for you, and I really hope you enjoy it. Keep in mind, of course, you can always subscribe to the show on YouTube, on Stitcher, on iTunes, or on our website, which is www.conversationofartpodcast.com. And, without further ado, here's the show.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess, first of all, I would like to introduce you, or you can introduce yourself and just say a little bit about what you do. And I know that's kind of multifaceted. So what are you up to these days, Ross?
Cool. I am mostly designing websites for bands and musicians at Electric Kiwi. And I'm also podcasting over at Bridge the Atlantic. So they're my two main things that take up pretty much all my time, and even time that I don't have. That's kind of where I'm at, yeah.
Yes, I understand that completely. So what do you, let's start off with the podcast. Just before we started, you were just telling me a little bit about your latest interview. So I'd love to hear more about that, who that was and how that came together, and yeah.
Cool. Well, our latest interview is a singer-songwriter called Janet Devlin. She was on the UK X Factor show in 2011, I think. Now, that's from memory, so I might be wrong. She came 5th in the show, and I've always been interested in her because she's not your standard kind of like reality show musician type contestant. She's very individual, very she had a much more kind of independent kind of vibe to her anyway. Okay. So I was really interested in, and I actually stumbled across her latest album a few months ago, and I really, really liked what I heard. So I sent her an email, and so we got her on the show, and it was pretty cool. It was surreal, I guess, because I'd seen her on TV. I had no idea really what she was going to be like, and that's something I always find interesting, is if I've already like seen someone or if I've listened to them for a long time, there's always kind of that fear. It's like, what if they're a total douche? Like, what if they're just not what you hope they would be?
Right. But
thankfully she was really, really nice. She was everything that I hoped she would be. That's awesome. So everyone should check that one out.
Yeah, definitely, on Bridge the Atlantic. So how long ago did you guys start the podcast? That's a few months ago?
I mean, it feels like a long time because we recorded about 20 interviews before we actually launched. So I think we started doing the interviews in August 2014, and then we actually launched in October, I think. It probably feels like we've been doing a lot longer, and there's a lot of learning involved. There's a lot of scheduling involved, because I'm in Scotland and Marcio's in Toronto, or just outside Toronto. So there's we've already got those 2 time zones, and then we've got the time zone of our guest. And if we're doing a special episode with more than one guest, then there's maybe 4, 5, 6 time zones taken into account. So
trying to find a moment that's not 3 a.m. for something that becomes difficult.
Yeah. I mean, we've done one interview where it was 1 a.m. for me. And that was fine, but I was exhausted. We'd already done 3 interviews that day, so it was a pretty tiring day. But it's definitely been a learning process, kind of everything that's involved in it, from actually learning how to conduct interviews, because we'd never done that. Like, we've been interviewed, but we'd never done the interviews before. So there was that. There was the whole prep side of things. There was a whole editing side of things, which thankfully I don't have much of a part in. That all goes to Marcio, so I'm really sorry, Marcio. Yeah, that's probably the most stressful part, is the editing. And then obviously there's the whole promotion and marketing side, which has been a lot more challenging than we thought. So I have a whole new appreciation for how difficult it is for musicians to promote what they do, because it's not easy getting people to listen sometimes.
Yeah, to make some noise, and no, it's like, there's an audience with podcasts that are really into it, and then it's trying to find those people who want to listen to people chat for half an hour, 45 minutes, however long you do.
Yeah.
But it's just like, and there's a lot of people, and they're pretty interested once they find it. But you're right, like just trying to find the right people for the right show just takes.
Exactly. And I find that the podcasting community have been more supportive than probably any kind of community that I've ever been involved in online. Like, if you go on Reddit, like normally Reddit is like the black hole, like you want to avoid it because everyone just is, pretty mean. But see, the podcasting communities on Reddit, they're like so supportive. They are willing to review your show, rate your show, give you like private feedback if you want it. They'll share your show on Twitter, they'll follow you, and it's just like I've not come across like as kind of a large scale joint, I can't think of quite the words, but no, it's just very, very supportive, and it's been great, and we've made some really good friends through the podcasting community, and we've been on a couple of their shows, which has been really nice. But yeah, finding the actual target audience rather than just the general podcasting audience is the thing that we're finding maybe a little more difficult than we anticipated.
Sure. Yeah. So where do you get most of your when new people do come across your show? Are they mostly connections through you guys, or through your guests, or just people searching, or what usually where do you usually find people?
Normally, I mean, we definitely get a lot of people that tune in just for the individual guest that we've got. So that'll be like fans of the guest or friends of theirs or whatever. So we get some of that. But then we do get a few of them that say, oh, I really like that episode, I'm going to check out some more. And then they end up being subscribers. So that's ultimately what we want. We want the guests to bring in new people, but for the new people to like what we do enough that they want to check out, 2 or 3 other episodes and then stay on board for the future ones. But yeah, I think probably most of them do come through us individually, because Marcio's already got a fan base for his music, and I've got a bit of a following on Twitter because I've been using Twitter for forever. But yeah, I guess what we're hoping to do is to branch out and find more people that are not connected to us, and maybe that are not even connected to any of the guests that we've had previously, that are just going to be introduced to new stuff. Like, that's ultimately what we want. We want to introduce people to new music, new artists, new creative people. And yeah, it's just a case of actually finding these people and making them love us is what we want. That's the plan.
Getting them dialed in. Well, you guys have done a great job, and I think part of what is always, and not surprising because of what you do, but part of what I think has always been really good about your shows, you guys always have had such a strong visual feel to it too. I've always felt like the which is a lot more than people realize, right? Like, once you get into it, like you need, like I was fairly aware of it before I started this show, for instance, but then you're like, okay, so I'll design kind of a base logo, and then I know I'll have to modify it. But by the time you make like and just basic, but you need something that's going to go on your website, a header, and then you're going to need like feature images for every episode. And even though they're fairly standard, they still take. And then your Facebook cover photo's got to be a different thing. And then your Facebook profile picture, and then your YouTube channel needs a few pieces of art. And it's just like, it all adds up. So I mean, what have you felt like that's been important? I mean, part for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something we spoke about. Like, when we wanted to launch, we knew we'd seen what other podcasts had done, and how some of them had really great shows, but they didn't really have much branding, or there wasn't really much of a visual kind of element, and it just felt like it was a hobby. And that's totally fine. I mean, most podcasts are hobbies, or at least start out as hobbies. But we wanted to really go in with as overall like a professional kind of approach as we could.
Yeah.
Um, because we knew that if we wanted to get some bigger guests, then we would need to have, I mean, because obviously we weren't going to have the following right as soon as we launched. So we needed to have something that made us kind of credible and make people take us seriously. So I think we did spend quite a bit of time seeing what worked and what kind of was going to go with the theme of the show. And I think we've got it. I mean, I think we're probably going to make some adjustments as we go along, as I think we're always going to need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely was something we had put quite a lot of consideration into.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think you can feel that. And I guess that kind of leads well into kind of some of the other stuff you do with bands and visuals and graphics and websites. And I guess, yeah, I'd just love to hear more about that and how you came to be doing that, like to be focused on the visual side of music. You know, I think that's an interesting category.
Cool. It's kind of a long-ish story, but I try every time I tell it to make it a little bit shorter. So basically, I've been designing websites since I was about 12. So that's about 15. Oh, no, it's 16 years now. Okay, I'm getting old. But yeah, so I've been doing it for a long time. It was just a hobby. One of my friends started designing websites, and I was like, well, if you've got a website, then I want a website. So we kind of had a bit of a competition thing going on.
Right.
But as I kind of got a little bit older, I was like, well, it's music that I'm interested in. I want to be a musician. So I went to university and studied popular music performance, and throughout that, I kind of learned that as much as I liked performing, it wasn't what I was going to do for a living. I was like, I just kept getting the feeling that, you know, it's not for me. But luckily, I learned at the same time that I was really interested in promotion and marketing side of things. So we did a promotion and marketing class, and we basically had to come up with our own project. We weren't really given much guidance about any of that at all. So I came up with the idea that I was going to create a website to promote myself as a singer-songwriter and use social media to drive people to the website and to get them to sign up to my mailing list, with the end goal being to get at least 100 people to sign up to my mailing list. Okay. And I exceeded that, and I got the best grade in my year for that class when I'd never done promotion and marketing type thing before. So that kind of made me think, maybe this is the direction I should go in. And in a lot of ways it made sense because I already knew how to build websites and I already loved music, so combining the two of them just made sense. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really think about setting up my own company. I just thought, I'll get a job with a company that does websites for musicians. Yeah, that'll be fine. I can do that. But I mean, it was so difficult to find anything. Even getting a web design job with a company was not easy. I did end up doing work with an online marketing company, which it was the same kind of lines, but they specialize in like hotels and other kind of businesses. So it wasn't music related, but at least it gave me some experience in working directly with clients in the digital kind of area. Right. So I did some freelance stuff on the side. I noticed a musician that I had loved for years back in the MySpace days tweeted that she was looking for an intern in LA to help her out with online marketing stuff. And I tweeted back, and I think the almost exact words of my tweet were, hey, I'm in the wrong location, but I'm exactly who you're looking for, so let's work together. And I would never normally say something like that, but I just I had the feeling that I had to just do it.
Yeah, just go for it, yeah.
And she messaged me back like straight away, and she's like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, really? Okay. And it was kind of weird. It was a bit of a starstruck moment for me because I'd been a fan of hers for so long. And so I was doing a bit of SEO stuff. And then she just emailed me and she's like, hey, I've got a new album coming out like in a week, so would you be able to redesign my website? And I was like, okay, I'd be stupid not to do this because this is what I want to do, and I've not really done, I hadn't really done any websites for a musician that wasn't myself. So I did that, and then she ended up referring people to me, and so I was doing all this alongside while I was working at the other place, and eventually the freelance stuff got to a point where I felt I could take the leap and do this full time, which was a scary move, but and sometimes it's still scary, but it's been worthwhile, and I've been doing it ever since, and that's been three years, and that was still a pretty long story. I've still not mastered the art of condensing this.
That's good though. I mean, I think that's interesting, like just how it built together. I think it's incredible. I'm still blown away consistently by Twitter. Like, there's just so often that I talk to people that I still feel like on some level I have no business talking to, right? Like you're a fan of theirs and you're like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, it's out there. And then they're like, oh, yeah. Da, da. You're like, oh, hi. Hey, we're talking.
I know what you mean,
That's
but the
crazy.
thing I think is funny is how often people respond to you, like people that you maybe wouldn't expect to reply because they've got so many followers, or you think, oh, they're so busy, they're not going to see my tweet. Like, obviously, it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you will get a tweet back, and you're just like, cool, you kind of know who I am now.
Yeah, on some
Um,
level.
yeah,
Yeah, there's been different times when I've gone to music conferences where I've met people and I know who they are, but we've mostly chatted via Twitter.
yeah,
So it's like, I go and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Andrew Jones. Like, oh, yeah, yeah. I'm like, Checkered Owl on Twitter? It's like, yes, so hey. It's like, you know each other by your Twitter handle as much as anything else because it's just like
yeah,
bantered back and forth a few times. And it's just such a crazy, and like you say, like the amount of work that gets done. Like I remember, and even I mean, as a small business owner, I'm sure it's the same for you. But it's just like I remember the first time someone texted me about booking a show, and I was like, what? What is this guy doing? Like, what are we're not gonna text. And now, like, I book shows over text, over email, over Facebook. It's so diverse now, the
yeah.
communication, right? Because everyone has their own system, and so you're just like, yeah, sure, let's just talk and
Yeah.
wherever we need to
It can be
connect.
difficult to keep track of things, though. I always try, like, I like using Facebook and Twitter as the initial kind of
Yeah,
getting the initial conversation, but I ultimately want everything in my email because otherwise it's kind of all over the place. And I like to think I'm organized. I mean, I hope I'm organized. I'm organized enough for me. So I need everything in one place. Otherwise, I would completely lose track. And that's one of my big fears when it comes to business is losing track of something, like forgetting to do something. That terrifies me. Like, terrifies me.
oh yeah, no, yeah, and that is the problem with it being so spread out. Sometimes it's just like
Yeah.
you're like and then you go to search, and if it's like a project that you've worked on a lot, sometimes there's not even good keywords, because if you're like new album web design,
Yeah.
oh frick, I've sent like 1,000 emails that say those words
Yeah.
in them, it's like hard to, so I totally get that, huh? So that's okay. So you're mostly focused on kind of the internet branding side of things. Is that like mostly on websites or all over the net or what?
Yeah, mostly websites. I mean, I'm kind of branching out a little bit. Like I'll do some social branding, so I'll do like designs for like people's Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff. Normally that's part of the web design process, so I'll normally sort of throw that in as part of that. But I am trying to do a little bit of offline stuff now as well. So I have done a couple of album and single kind of covers. Because print design's always scared me a bit, and the reason it scared me is because once it's printed, you can't change it. And that one thing I like about the digital stuff is you can change it.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives me that whole extra. There's a little bit more pressure on the print stuff, I think. But I've done a couple of album projects recently, and I really enjoyed them. So I've decided that I am gonna promote the fact that I do that because I never really promoted it before. It was always just if people asked, then I would either say yes or no, depending on whether I wanted to do it for them or not.
Yeah.
But now I feel like, yeah, I like doing this. So, and I'm getting a bit more comfortable, and yeah, I'm happy to kind of promote that. So the focus is probably always going to be more on the web design stuff, though, because that's really what I prefer to do, and I feel most comfortable doing. But yeah, branching out a little bit, kind of scary, but kind of cool.
That's awesome. So do you feel like what are there any artists or bands or other sites that you feel like are, I don't know, that do a really good job and you kind of like, oh, draw some inspiration from or that sort of thing?
Ooh, good question. Uh, I mean, there probably are. I mean, none come to mind right now, but I'll always like see if someone follows me on Twitter, like I'll always check out their website.
Right.
And there's some really cool websites. There was a guy whose website I found today. It was just a one-page site. It was like a really, really simple landing page. I think his artist name is Monogram, and it was really cool. And I looked at that and I was like, yeah, I want to do something like this. Like not copying it, but I want to do something with that kind of vibe. It was really cool. Um, so yeah, now and then I do find ones. I should probably bookmark them. I just said I was organized, and now everything I'm proving I'm not that organized. But yeah, I probably should bookmark some of them because I do now and then come across some really cool ones. There was one there's a band from Glasgow called Churches, which is churches with a V instead of a
Oh
U.
yeah, yeah.
They had a really cool website. I'm not sure what their website's like now, but I remember when it was just before their album came out. They had like again, it was just a one page, like a landing page, and it was just really striking, really cool, and it did everything they needed to do.
Right.
Because I really like simplicity. I don't like stuff to be overcomplicated. So anytime I find something that's simple but really kind of that has a really big impact, I like that, and that's what I really want to try and get doing a bit more of. Especially when it comes to the smaller sites. I think it's easier to do it on a smaller site um, because there's not so much to fit in there.
To talk about. Hmm. That's cool. So do you yeah. So do you find that kind of shifts over time for you then? Like what's working and what's not working or
Probably. I mean, I think I've always felt that simpler is better, but I find that I'm increasingly finding that.
right.
Like I don't want too much clutter. I don't want too many distractions everywhere. Whereas I think probably a couple of years ago I would have been like, yeah, let's have a sidebar with like 20 things in it. Whereas now I'm just like, no, just if you have to have a sidebar, limit it to maybe just your blog page and maybe only have three things in it rather than everything. So yeah, and that's probably the main difference. And I know obviously more people are using mobile and tablet now. Um, so responsive design is becoming much more important. So that's something that I hadn't even touched until maybe like a year and a half or 2 years ago,
Right.
and now it's pretty standard. So that was some learning that I had to do, and I was really resistant, or yeah, I was resisting it for as long as I could.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm getting to grips with that, and I'm actually starting to like it. I hated it, even up until 6 months ago. I was just like, I hate doing responsive design, and but now I'm getting my head around it, and I'm starting to like it a bit more. So it's something I'm starting to implement in most of the new projects I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you find like when you're in general, even outside of music or within music, like what do you find is like the the top one or two greatest things that you just love about online and the internet, and then what are the one or two things that when you just see you just hate it? It's just
Yeah.
frustrating and annoying and
Um, I mean, I guess one of the things that I like most about the internet is just kind of how easy it is to connect with anyone. Um, Especially when it comes to music, it could be an artist that you've admired for a long time, or it could be an artist you've only just discovered. But now it's so easy just to send them a message or send them a tweet and just say, "Hey, I just heard your music," or "I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I really like what you're doing," and for them to actually see it and respond to it. Whereas, before the internet, you'd have to send a letter to like a fan club or whatever, and that they probably weren't really going to see it, or if they did see it, you would never get a response, so you wouldn't know. So I like that it can bring people together in a weird way, because at the same time it really isn't bringing people.
yeah,
It's a
kind of a
weird kind of.
paradox there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word, paradox. So yeah, I really like that. Something I really don't like. Mm, YouTube comments. They're a horrible place to be.
They are. If
Um,
you ever want to like lose your faith in humanity, the quickest, just go to any YouTube video that like mentions anything that people. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
It's like a music video about like people dancing. It's like
Mm.
rage and slander. You're like, whoa, hey.
Well, there's a radio show that I really enjoy here, and I used to listen to it years ago, because they've got it in podcast form as well, and I just for some reason completely missed it for the last like 2 or 3 years. So I've been like listening and catching up. But they do a section called Feed the Trolls, where basically one of the hosts goes on to a website, or it's normally a news story, and posts a comment which is the complete opposite to what all the other comments are. So
Right.
most of the comments will be saying how ridiculous they think something is, but then she'll go on and say, "Oh no, I think this is the best thing ever." But she'll go completely over the top and just go out, and it'll just be really crazy. And at the end of the show, they reveal, how many thumbs up or thumbs down it's had, and if there's been any responses.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's hilarious. The show's called The Jeff Show. No, The Jeff Lloyd Home Time Show it's called now. Definitely worth checking out. It's really,
That's
really
hilarious.
funny. It's quite I guess it's quite a British sense of humor though, so I don't know how well it'll translate
That's
outside of
perfect
the
for
UK,
me.
but still.
I don't know about everyone, but that's my family's all English, so I love that.
Cool. You should definitely check it out. It's really funny. But yeah, so I mean, in some ways I hate the comment section of websites, but in other ways I love them because they are just awful. But most of me hates them.
Right. I had my first, like, it was amazing to me. I had my first recently. He seems to have gone away, but my first troll who just decided he didn't like me for, I don't know, who knows? Like, he never made a constructive enough comment on anything. But the same guy kept popping up on my website and on my YouTube page, just like saying offensive things for no reason at all. And I was like, it's like, you look like a douche. I'm like, what? Who are you? What? Where is this coming from, man? It was crazy. But I mean, I guess that's what happens when you start, blogging and
Yeah,
podcasting. And it was fine.
yeah.
It was actually kind of like this tiny annoying badge of honor in a way. I was like, well, someone seems to be paying enough attention to hate me.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's
I
like
don't know
one
why,
of one of my recent podcasting friends, a guy called Sean, who hosts a show called No Totally. He got a 1-star review on iTunes, and it was like a novel. Like it was seriously, it was just, but it was all aimed at him. Like it wasn't even aimed at the show. It was just
Very
aimed at him,
personal attack.
which basically just said that Sean is the worst person ever. And like he was obviously a bit upset at first when he read it. He was just like, "Am I doing something wrong?" He's like, "Do I just need to stop?" But I think ultimately he's turned it around, and he had the whole podcast interview about it and how bad it was, and they've invited the guy on the show. They were like, "Come on, I want to talk to you. I want to find out, why you hate me so
Why you
much."
hate
But they've got no idea who this guy is, because that's the problem with the iTunes reviews is you can make up any username you want. It doesn't link to anything, so you can't even find out who that person is. But no, I think it's one of the things. If you do put yourself out there in any form, whether it's YouTube videos, or you're putting music out, you're putting your opinions out on Twitter, anything like that, you have to kind of be aware that not everyone's going to like what you do, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, I think you're doing something wrong if everyone likes you.
Yeah.
And
Right,
just don't worry. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's so many people that they're just on the internet because they're bored, and it's fun for them to try and wind you up and get a response out of you. So just ignore it. Like, don't feed them unless
Yeah.
you're Annabelle on the Jeff Show, and then go ahead and feed them as much as you want because
That's the point.
awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so funny. It's like a reverse troll. It's genius.
Mhm.
Just here's a counterpoint. Well, you know what you're saying about Reddit earlier in the podcast community. I've long held not long. It makes me sound like I think I'm a lot more wise than I am. But
Well, you're an owl. You're a checkered owl.
that's right. So for a while though, I felt like Reddit is actually the secret backbone to the internet.
Mm.
Everything that really takes off, like any video I've ever been a part of that really suddenly got up to, let's say 20,000 plus hits or somewhere in that range. You can get up to, yeah, it depends. But almost all of them that have done that quickly I've seen they've blown up on Reddit first.
Mm.
And sometimes you can find them. And one video, an artist I work with by the name of Luke Dowler, he has a video, and it did really well. I mean, it was, like for indie artist, whatever. It went up to 50,000 views or whatever. And it was sudden.
Yep.
And we're like, oh. So I was, you're looking through the analytics and trying to figure it out. And it was in Reddit, but I could never backtrace that link because it was just in a comment in some thread somewhere, which was infuriating as like an artist manager, right? Because you're like, there's this community of people who obviously loves what we do.
Yeah.
And if I could consistently access, but you have no idea, because it was, if someone had posted it directly onto Reddit, it would have been fine. But
you could have easily found
it's
it.
a lot harder to sort out. But anyway, I find it, I don't know. Have you found that as well? Like, it seems like to me that Reddit, somehow that community, maybe there are people who use the internet a lot, so they have more sharing power, or I don't know what it is. But have you found that at all?
I mean, I tend not to use Reddit too much. I mean, I do only really hang out in the podcasting communities, and when I say hang out, I mean I drop in like a couple of times a week. I'm not there all the time, but yeah, I do see what you mean though. Like a lot of stuff that takes off, maybe not always because of Reddit, but definitely Reddit is involved in some way relatively early, I think.
Yeah, it usually seems to be like 12 hours faster than
than
the rest of the internet.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, it's like Reddit is actually, just thinking about it now, sorry not to cut you off, but it seems like it goes Reddit gets things first, and then, well, YouTube just kind of chugs along with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like a measuring stick than a network in a lot of ways, but it's like Reddit catches things first, and then Twitter, and then the next day Facebook. After Reddit and Twitter are like, okay, we've got this, then Facebook starts to catch on to what's going on.
Yeah, Facebook lags behind so much.
Yeah, it's always...
I don't even want to talk about Facebook. I hate Facebook. Seriously.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, so, that's interesting. So do you find, like, do you do a lot of, a lot of what you do with social network, do you mostly end up working out of the UK, or is it mostly through social stuff all over the world?
This is something I've been meaning to do for a long time. I've been meaning to kind of break down like where my clients are from and where they find me, because I always ask anyone that contacts me, I always say, where was it you found me? So I really I love spreadsheets, so I really want to make some spreadsheets of like where the clients are from and where they found me, and all that kind of geeky stuff, just so I can be like, yeah, this is it. And I've thought about putting a map somewhere on my site just to kind of indicate like where people are from, because I don't want people to think that I only work with people locally, or I don't want them to think that I only work in specific areas. But I would say, kind of going off the top of my head, I would say it's probably a 50-50 split. I would say maybe half my clients are based in the UK and half of them are based elsewhere. So I've worked with people in the US, Canada, Australia, Ireland, probably other places. I can't quite think, but yeah, it kind of all spread around. But I would say, yeah, probably half in the UK, half elsewhere. And a lot of that's from Twitter. Even within the UK, a lot of those are from Twitter. Either Twitter or word of mouth tend to be the main ones, with Google maybe third or fourth.
Right. And you're in Scotland, right?
Yeah, I'm in Glasgow.
Right in Glasgow. Nice. I have some friends who've been there, and everyone seems to really dig it. So I don't think I've been into Scotland. Probably my mom will listen to this podcast and correct me. But I went to England, I went to Wales. I don't think we went to Scotland.
No?
I don't quite remember. No.
You should have.
I should fix that next time, obviously. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah, well, what else? There's something else I wanted to ask you about while I had you on here. That's one thing I'm really loving about this show, is basically I just get to talk to friends that I've kind of wanted to have a good conversation with.
Yeah.
And then I just record it and call it work. So
yeah. I mean, that's one thing we found about our show, and even one of the reasons that we started the show was because we wanted a reason to get in touch with people that we had always wanted to speak to, or that we had spoken to but wanted to have a more in-depth conversation with, and just kind of just a way of meeting each other, I guess. And it's been really a really good way of connecting and chatting with people. It's kind of like, it makes me think, why did I not do this sooner? Because it would have been great to have started this a year ago, and because then we could be, I don't know where we'd be now,
A year
but no, it's
further
cool.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, well, that's awesome, and I've really enjoyed your show too. So and
Thank you.
yeah, and I mean, obviously, all our different chats on the GG chat on Thursdays and stuff.
Yeah.
And, so, but yeah, I think Bridge the Atlantic is it's just a really cool show, and somehow I had missed that Marcio was from Canada. I thought he was an American. So.
Oh, don't say that.
I know. Well, I'm from
No, he won't.
Canada too, so I'm always like, oh, well, there you go, there we are. So cool. All right, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on and chatting for a bit. We've talked for longer than I thought we had, so that's great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for inviting me. It was fun, and yeah, it was good to actually to speak to you, because we've spoken on Twitter, we've spoken on Facebook. I watched a couple of videos that you posted. Can't remember which ones. I can't remember what they're about now, but I remember watching stuff. But yeah, it's always kind of weird, because when I spoke to Michael Brandvold yesterday, it was like, I've watched your videos, I've listened to your podcast. It's like I know you, but we haven't spoken. But it sort of feels like we have, because I've heard you so much, and it's just one of these weird things. But
Yeah, I did Michael's podcast a little while ago. It was the same.
yeah, yeah.
I kind of, because when I was first, not when I was first, but when I was first engaging with the, like, I'd already been doing music for a long time. When I was first engaging with like the music business community more on Twitter and that sort of thing, and I was listening to Michael and Brian all the time, and like you say, watching the videos, and so it's a cool experience, just being able to network in a totally different way and have friends. And actually, in that first episode of this show that you said you listened to, it's the same thing with James. Like he runs a review site, so I'd contact him when my artists had new albums coming out and stuff. But then we became friends, and then you're chatting, and in the end, you're like, I always feel funny because I'm like I'm describing to my wife, for instance, an interaction that happened online. I'm like, well, my friend Ross from Scotland, I think, like, he's my friend. I don't know, we talk. Anyway,
I know, it's weird.
Is
it's
what
like
he said to me.
it's weird, yeah. Like, same with me and Marcio. Like, Marcio started out as a client of mine. We met on Twitter as well, and yeah, but like, Marcio and I speak pretty much every day, and sometimes we'll be on Skype and we will sit and we'll talk for like 2 or 3 hours while I'm working on something, he'll be working on something, and we'll just talk for ages. And I was saying to one of my friends, I was like, Marcio is probably one of my best friends, and I've never met him.
Yeah.
It's really strange, and I think if you said that to someone 5 years ago, they'd be like, "Oh no, you're a freak. You're really weird. Like, you can't have a friend that you've never met. Like, that you're really close to." It's like, but we talk on Skype. It's the same as talking on the phone. We talk enough. It's like, I know that he's not like some kind of creepy serial killer. Like, I know that he's like a real person. He's just like me, but Canadian, and
it's not going to turn out suddenly that he's an 80-year-old woman that has fooled you.
Yeah, exactly.
There's enough of a relationship there that you're like,
yeah, exactly. And I've spoken to his wife. I've spoken to his son. His son knows who I am and calls me Uncle Ross. So it's just, it's weird, but it's cool, and I like that things have progressed to a way that we can all chat.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It makes it way more well, and even like you said, even the media and stuff that we all consume is so much like you're talking about the difference with the British humor and converting and stuff. And it's like, even when I was in high school, there was a group of us who, we really liked Monty Python and a few things, and you'd get like pieces of it and stuff. But now, like, half the shows I watch on Netflix are BBC shows, and
they won't be soon. BBC are taking everything away.
They did reach a deal, I thought.
Oh, did they? Okay.
A bunch of it, not quite as many, but on a bunch of. I know, it's just Netflix is like infuriating that way. I mean, I
Mm.
love it overall, but it's like just like we're in the middle of there's never we were in the middle of watching. They had a series of Robin Hood on there, and I've always liked the Robin Hood story, so we were watching that. And it's just like halfway through a season, and then one day I logged on, I'm like, okay, here we go. Oh,
Yeah, that infuriates me. I was
oh
watching a
God.
Canadian show actually. It's really bad. But sometimes like I like to watch something in bed, like when I'm not like wanting to fully focus on something, but something that, is relatively interesting but not too heavy.
Right.
Urban Legends, it's a
Okay.
Canadian show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching that and I got to the end of the first season and I was like, oh, yes, I can watch season two tonight. And I go on and they've removed season two and three, but they've kept season one. And I was like, so you don't even remove the full show. You remove the seasons that I was about to watch. Um, really frustrating. But yeah, I love Netflix, and I think Netflix has saved me so much money because I used to buy so many box sets,
Oh
and
yeah.
now I don't need to buy all the box sets.
Mm.
There are some that I'll still buy, but I'm just so glad that I can watch them on Netflix.
Yeah, because we for years didn't watch TV like when it aired, hardly ever. Like basically the only time I find I need TV is during the World Cup, and the rest of the time I'm pretty much fine without it. I'm like, well, and Euros, and that's it. I'm like, well, this is every 2 years, so I don't really need
Yeah.
to pay for it. But yeah, but Netflix. So we were going out. We were always renting the DVDs at
Ah,
Blockbuster.
yep, yep.
We'd rent two discs of 24 or Lost or whatever we were watching at the time, and yeah, it's fine. But yeah, like you say, Netflix is definitely a lot cheaper than that.
Definitely, and it's great because over here, like obviously we get a lot of like American shows, but we don't get them right when they air. Normally there'll be a couple of weeks delay, like it'll start over here 2 weeks after
Yeah.
or so. But what Netflix have done, particularly with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, is more so in the later season of Breaking Bad, but definitely with Better Call Saul, we get it the day after, so we don't have to wait a whole week or we don't have to wait, a month for it to be bought by a network over here.
Yeah.
We'll get it like the next day.
It's
So
so
it just
smart.
reduces the spoilers because that's one thing that drives me crazy on social media because I have to be on Facebook and Twitter because of work. Um, that's one thing that always gets ruined is someone will post something what's happened on The Walking Dead or what's happened on Breaking Bad or whatever it is, and I'll just be like, no, because it's not like I even had a chance to. It's not even like I could have watched it if I wanted to because it's just not on. So at least Netflix it's obviously not completely eliminated it, but it's made it a little bit.
No, well, and I think the more companies come to realize that that's how we all feel, like the global. Actually, well, just today, right? The music industry announced that
Yeah,
Fridays are going to be a global release day, which makes so much more sense. Like it's like
I have a
Sherlock.
I have a question,
Yeah.
right? Over here they release well, if it's going to change to Friday, then I think that's better. But yeah, we always had CDs released on a Monday,
Yeah.
but I know in the US it's Tuesday. Is it
Yeah.
Tuesday in Canada too?
Tuesday in Canada too.
Why Tuesday? Like I understand, like Monday sort of makes sense because it's right at the start of the week
Right.
or the working week. But Tuesday,
I think I honestly think it was like this thing. It was like everyone can get back to work for a day, kind of clear their heads, and the next day go buy a record. I don't know.
it
Really.
seems really strange. I want to speak to the person who came up with that idea, but they're probably dead. But I kind of, I'm just, I don't know. But like Friday makes more sense. Movies come out on Fridays, don't they?
In theaters, I think they usually do Thursdays.
Oh, I think it's Friday.
I thought they had one day. I think it's Thursdays here because they have one day that people start to get a little like the really keen people are going to be there. They're gonna and then they're gonna start telling their friends, "Oh, you got to see this." So then when you get into actual opening weekend, you have some ramp up time to have like a big
Oh, that makes
big
sense. Yeah.
numbers on opening weekend. I think because obviously most people go to the movie on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I totally we get the exact same thing in reverse, but it's just so silly with torrenting that people don't want you to pirate things, and then it's the same thing like I was gonna say with Sherlock. It comes out in the UK, and I'm supposed to wait 2 months, and then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna wait 2 months.
Yeah.
Like I'll know everything that has happened in
Yeah.
2 months, so I'm gonna get it like an hour later. That's when I'm gonna watch
Mhm.
it because I can block out my social media for an evening until I have a
Yeah.
chance to watch it, you know. But
Yeah, like I'm like someone said to me, they're like, "Oh, well, why don't you just not go on Twitter or Facebook?" I'm like, "But I shouldn't have to not go on it to avoid a spoiler." And because it was just like I think but like this one person was getting really really like in my face about it, and I was like, "Why are you getting so annoyed that I was upset that a show I was watching got ruined for me because someone just couldn't keep their mouth shut about what happened?"
right.
Like, and they were like, "Oh, well, you can just not go on Facebook. Why do you have to be on Facebook?" And it's like, well, for a start, I just opened the Facebook app by mistake, and that was the first thing that was staring me right in the face. Um, but yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think people need to kind of be more aware that not everyone watches everything at the exact same second that they do.
Right.
And I also think that, yeah, it just makes more sense. Release everything at the same time everywhere, and people can just have it when they want it because that's, that's the way things are going, I
Oh
think.
yeah, it's totally. And even like I love how Netflix releases TV shows and it's just here's a season. And if you
Yeah.
want to
Oh,
like
it's so much better.
if you
Like
want to
Orange is
blow
the New
your whole
Black and
weekend and
yeah,
just sit there and watch it, great. Or if you want to watch an episode a night, it's so much nicer because you're
yeah.
like some nights you're like, oh man, one episode was good. I have some stuff I want to get to, and then other nights you're like, I'd like another one.
And you know what's
It's
funny? Like that's great, and I love that. Like I love having the choice of watching it all at once or spreading it out.
yeah,
But what I do find is with shows like Orange is the New Black and House of Cards and all the stuff that's released in one go,
yeah,
I never find that anything gets ruined for me. No one seems because I think because everyone's watching it at their own pace, they know that everyone's at a different point with
that's right.
it.
So until
So
it's
they
like
don't post
a
stuff,
year
and
has gone
that's what's been
by.
really good because I didn't watch Orange is the New Black until probably I was really late to watching that because I think I waited until season two was out before I even watched season one.
Yeah,
So I was way behind, but I didn't have a clue what happened because no one had been posting about it in the same way that they were with other shows.
right.
So I don't know. I don't know if that's related or if it's maybe just a coincidence. But I definitely think, yeah, just release everything like on demand. Everyone will be happier. Stop limiting stuff to certain regions because that's really frustrating. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you can't get a show, like the shows over there that I really want to see, but I can't get them over here, and I can't even buy them on DVD or Blu-ray because they're region locked. And you're probably the same as
Yeah.
maybe with BBC stuff that doesn't get released worldwide.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just they need to fix it. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
well, and it's just time. Actually, we talked about this on the last episode, which I haven't posted yet because my computer is not working for me this yesterday. But yeah, I think the sooner, I think ultimately the people who are able to lead the way and say, hey, you know what? We're just not signing the same kind of licensing deals. Everything's different, but that's hard to do because you have like every country has its own legislation, right? Like
Yeah, I mean it
Canada has
works
the
in theory, but
CRTC, and they're like, oh, because they want like we have rules in Canada. I don't know if you guys would have them. I know they don't most places, but we have rules in Canada like that a certain percentage of your content has to be Canadian to have a channel or something
right.
here or a radio station or something, which is honestly I love it, the CanCon
Hmm.
requirements, because it forces Canadian artists to compete on a higher level. And
Yeah, and
so
it stops. You're not putting people out of work because you're just buying stuff from the US
yeah,
or
exactly.
wherever.
And so I think it's brilliant, but it does make it some of the digital transactions
Mm.
trickier, right? Because they can't obviously limit individual people to be like, oh, you need to watch another Canadian show before you
Yeah,
can watch. So it's kind of tricky figuring that out. But at the end of the day, the reality is all of that is going away. Like all the borders, all the time,
yeah,
because we just it's it's like we say, it's like, oh, but Ross, my friend in Scotland, just told me about this today, so I'd like to try it out. Why can't I watch that in
yeah,
Canada? He said it's great.
yeah. Exactly. Because I mean, if things aren't available, people always find a way around it, and it's normally an illegal way around it.
That's right.
So I mean, yeah, there's just we know we should just sort it
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much, man. And it was that was fun. We'll have to chat again sometime soon.
Yeah, well, I'm always around, so just let me know if you want to do this again, and I'm more than happy.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to.
Cool.
Cool.